My son sent a message in the family group chat. We think it's best if you keep some distance for a while. My daughter-in-law hit the like button. I replied, understood. I'll respect that. And I'll also stop paying the house mortgage and the monthly transfers of $5,000. That night, my phone buzzed non-stop with panicked calls. Before we continue, please subscribe to the Granny's Voice channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are watching from now. We might give you a shout out in our next video. Today's shout out goes to Marie Adams from Los Angeles, California. Thank you for being part of this great family. Now, let me tell you what happened that day. Do you know that feeling when the ground disappears beneath your feet? I was standing in the kitchen, stirring a pot of pumpkin jam on the stove, the kind with cinnamon and cloves my grandmother had taught me to make, and my son Christopher had loved since he was a boy. The sweet, warm steam filled the kitchen, carrying the scent of happy memories. My phone vibrated on the counter. It was a notification from the family group. I wiped my hands on the light blue apron I'd worn for years, stained with the memories of countless meals, and picked up the phone. My heart was calm. Maybe Christopher was texting to plan Sunday lunch. Or maybe my granddaughter Lily had sent one of her drawings. At 68, those little things still brighten my day. But when I read the words on the screen, my blood ran cold. The family thinks it's best if you keep some distance. We're going through a rough time and need a little space. Just a few words enough to erase 30 years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, broken nails from sewing, and dreams I'd buried so my child could chase his own. I read the message 3 times, hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something less cruel. But they didn't. It was my son, the child I carried for 9 months, raised alone after my husband Robert died in an accident when I was 35, telling me to disappear from his life. Right below it was a blue thumbs up from Ashley, my daughter-in-law. A single careless tap as if it were just a funny video or random news article. My sister Susan was also in the group, silent. My brother-in-law, Richard, too, silent. No one said a word. No one defended me. No one asked why. Christopher, what is this about? I turned off the stove. The jam stopped boiling, but inside me, everything still burned. I sat down on the dark wooden chair I'd brought from my mother's house after she passed, and the phone slipped into my lap. How had things come to this? I'd worked 16-hour days at the sewing factory to pay for his education. I never took a vacation because every dollar I earned went toward giving him a better life. I'd had chances to remarry, several men had asked when I was younger, but I refused, afraid to confuse my child, wanting him to grow up knowing he was my only priority. And now at 68, with calloused hands and a back bent from years of labor, I was treated like an old piece of furniture that no longer fit the new decor. But what hurt most wasn't my son's words. It was Ashley's, like that tiny, indifferent gesture said everything about what I meant to them. A burden. I took a deep breath. The smell of pumpkin jam still lingered in the air, but now it made me nauseous. I thought about all the times I'd bitten my tongue to avoid being called controlling. The times I'd smiled through Ashley's coldness. The times I'd pretended not to notice being left out of conversations. Convincing myself it was just a phase. I picked up my phone. My hands trembled not from weakness, but from a cold, sharp anger I'd never known before. I began typing each word a decision. Understood. Christopher. I'll respect your request. And I'll also stop paying the $3,000 monthly mortgage, the $5,000 transfers, and Lily's $890 health insurance. I hope you both find the space you need. Love, Mom. I hit send. Then I threw the phone onto the couch, turned back to the kitchen, and dumped the entire pot of pumpkin jam, now a thick mixture of 3 generations of memories, into the trash. Because at that moment, I realized something. Love without respect doesn't nourish anyone. That night, my phone rang over and over, but I wasn't ready to answer anymore. And that's how I learned the most important lesson of my life, to value the person who values me most, myself. If you want to know how it all began, why I reached that breaking point, and what happened after that night, stay with me. Subscribe, because what comes next might make you see every relationship in your life differently. Let me tell you how I became a stranger in the very family I built. Because no one wakes up one morning and decides to be mistreated, it happens slowly, silently, like rust eating away at metal. You only realize it when it's too late. It all began 6 years ago on a March afternoon. I was sitting in the living room mending the lining of a handbag when Christopher called, his voice full of excitement. "Mom, I met someone special. I want you to meet her, Ashley." My heart skipped. My 35-year-old son had always been private about relationships. Hearing the joy in his voice filled me with hope. Maybe he'd finally found someone to build a home with. When I met Ashley, she was beautiful, long, straight hair, neat outfit, expensive gel nails. She hugged me and said she'd heard so much about me. "You're such an inspiration," she said sweetly. Words I would later learn were hollow. The first months were fine, some dinners, lunches, polite chats, but the small signs appeared early, subtle ones, like the time I brought Christopher's favorite chocolate frosted carrot cake for his birthday. Ashley smiled. "That's sweet of you, Mrs. Carroll, but we're trying to eat healthier. Christopher's been going to the gym." She pushed the cake aside as if it were something shameful. Christopher said nothing. Later came their small wedding at a rented farm venue. I offered to help, but Ashley said her mother, Nicole, had it all covered. I became just a guest at my own son's wedding. Then came the requests. At first, small ones. "Mom, can you lend Ashley $800 for an online course? It's important for her job." I gave it without hesitation. 2 weeks later. "Mom, the fridge broke. Could you help with $2,500? I helped again. Then, "Mom, Ashley's car needs repairs. $3,200. I helped once more, telling myself, my child needs me. That's what mothers do. Then came the big ask. One Thursday night, Christopher came over, looking uneasy. "Mom, Ashley, and I found our dream house, 3 bedrooms, a yard in a safe neighborhood. But we need about $95,000 for the down payment." I was stunned. That was nearly all my savings, the money from selling the small piece of land my late husband Robert had bought back in the 80s. My only security for old age. But when I looked into Christopher's eyes, I saw Robert's warmth, his hope. I asked myself, what's the point of safety if you can't use it to help the people you love? I sold the land and handed him the money. Christopher hugged me tight, called me the best mom in the world, said they'd never forget it. Ashley texted, "Thank you, Mom. You're an angel." 3 months later, they moved into the new house. Then came the first mortgage payment, $3,200 a month. Christopher called, worried. "Mom, we're struggling. Ashley hasn't passed her licensing exam yet, and my salary isn't enough. Could you help for a few months?" I knew it wouldn't be just a few months. But mothers always believe because we want to believe. I agreed to cover the mortgage. Then came the monthly transfers. First $2,000, then $3,500, then $5,000. Always with the same promise, just until things stabilize. I tightened my budget, cancelled my health insurance, stopped buying new clothes, ate cheaply. But I sent the money faithfully, thinking I was investing in my son's happiness. The more I gave, the more I lost. Sunday lunches became rare. "Mom, we're tired. We'll stay home." Or "Mom, Ashley's family is visiting. Maybe next week." When I called, Christopher was always busy. "Mom, I'll call you later." He never did. When Lily was born, my sweet granddaughter with those big round eyes, I thought things would get better. They got worse. Ashley didn't want me to hold the baby too often. Said she needed to respect their space as parents. Me, the woman who'd raised a child alone now, had to ask permission to hold my granddaughter. Christopher stayed silent, always taking his wife's side. Bit by bit, I stopped being a mother and became an ATM. Until that night, the dinner that changed everything. But that story, I'll tell you next. Because what happened that evening was the final drop in a glass that had been full for far too long. 3 weeks before that devastating message arrived, I received an invitation, a small spark of naive hope that maybe things could get better. Ashley called one Tuesday afternoon. "Carol, we'd love to invite you for dinner on Saturday. It's been too long." Her voice sounded oddly cheerful, a little forced, but I didn't want to doubt. It had been 4 months since I'd set foot in their house. For months of "we're too busy." That invitation made me believe maybe I'd been overthinking. I spent the whole week preparing. I went to the salon, spent $45 I hadn't planned to spend, but I wanted to look nice. I chose the teal silk blouse Christopher once said looked beautiful on me. I bought a $68 bottle of wine because Ashley was always posting about wine online. Then I baked my special lemon pie, not just a dessert, but a memory. When Christopher was 7, he caught pneumonia and stayed in the hospital for 3 days. I promised him that when he got better, I'd make the best lemon pie in the world. That afternoon, I stood in the tiny kitchen of our old apartment whisking egg whites with a fork because we didn't own a mixer. When Christopher took the first bite, his eyes lit up. "Mom, this is the best thing I've ever eaten." Since then, whenever he was sad or anxious, I made that pie. Saturday night. I arrived at their house right at 7:00 p.m. Holding the pie carefully in both hands, my heart beating faster than usual. Ashley opened the door wearing pink fluffy slippers. She hadn't even changed sweatpants, loose t-shirt, hair, and a messy bun. "Hi, Mrs. Carroll. Come in." No hug, no genuine smile. I stepped inside. The house smelled of takeout pizza boxes stacked on the counter. Pizza. They'd invited me to dinner and ordered pizza. "Sorry, we've been busy. Didn't have time to cook," Ashley said without looking up, then went back to scrolling on her phone. Christopher came out from the laundry room, drying his hands. "Hey, Mom." A quick cold kiss on the cheek. "Make yourself comfortable." I stood in the living room holding the pie and the wine, feeling out of place. Lily was playing with her dolls on the floor. When she saw me, she ran over. "Grandma," my heart softened. At least someone was happy to see me. "Lily, come here." "Let Grandma sit," Ashley said flatly. I put the pie in the fridge. No one said a word. No thank you, no compliment. It just sat there invisible. We ate, or rather, they did straight from the pizza boxes. I forced down 2 small bites. The air was heavy. Then Ashley began. "Mrs. Carroll, I watched a documentary recently about how older generations struggle to adapt to modern life." She chuckled, glancing at Christopher as if sharing a private joke. He smiled back. "Yeah, the world's changed a lot," he said. "Exactly," she continued, taking another slice of pizza. "Some mothers don't know how to let go. They're emotionally dependent, thinking their kids owe them constant updates, constant presence." My stomach tightened. She was talking about me even without saying my name. "It's suffocating," Ashley said now, meeting my eyes. "Every couple needs their own space and privacy. You can't have people coming in and out interfering all the time." I swallowed hard. I'd never wanted to interfere. "No one's talking about you specifically, Carol," she added with a fake smile. "But it was about me." Every word hit like a stone. Christopher said nothing. No defense, just nodded and kept eating. The evening dragged on. I tried to play with Lily, but Ashley said it was bedtime. I offered to help clean up, but there were only a few empty boxes, and Ashley said she had it handled. At 9:30 p.m., I stood to leave. No one asked me to stay. "Oh, wait, Mom," Christopher said. As I reached the door, my heart lifted for a moment, thinking he might hug me or apologize for the awkward night. "Did you transfer the money this month? The mortgage is due tomorrow." Money. It was all about money. "I transferred it on Friday," I said, feeling something break inside my chest. "Oh, great. Thanks, Mom. Drive safe." "Okay." I walked out, got into my car, didn't cry, just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, staring at the lit-up house, the house I had paid for, and wondered when I stopped being welcome there. I drove home feeling hollow. As soon as I stepped inside, I opened the fridge. I had saved 1 slice of lemon pie for myself. I ate it standing in the quiet kitchen. But it didn't taste the same anymore. Because now I understood. It doesn't matter how much you love or how much you give. If there's no respect on the other side, it all turns into scraps of affection. 2 days later, something happened that turned my pain into a decision. It began when I heard something I never should have heard. There are words that once they reach your ears carve themselves into your memory like scars that never heal. 2 days after that awful dinner, I woke up thinking about Lily. My granddaughter was about to turn 6, and I had spent the whole month sewing her a doll. Not a store-bought one, but a special one stitched by my own hands, wearing a blue floral dress just like the one I'd worn on my first day of school. I embroidered her name on the little apron. Lily, with all my love, Grandma Carol. I braided the doll's hair and tied red ribbons. Every stitch was a prayer. Every detail a piece of my love. I wanted Lily to have something. No store could sell a gift made by her grandmother carrying the story of our family. I called Christopher to tell him I'd stop by to drop off the gift. No answer. I called Ashley. No answer either. I sent a message. It showed read, but no reply. I decided to go anyway. I arrived around 2 p.m., the time Lily usually got home from school. I only meant to leave the gift and go. No, need to see anyone if they were busy. When I got there, the gate was slightly open. Probably the gardener forgot to close it. I walked to the front door holding the pink-wrapped present and rang the bell. No one came. I rang again. Still nothing. But I heard voices inside. Maybe the TV, I thought. I tried the doorknob. It wasn't locked. Is anyone home? I called, stepping inside. No reply. The house was quiet, but the voices came from the kitchen. Not the TV. People. My mind told me to leave, but my heart wouldn't let me. I needed to know why they were avoiding me. I walked slowly down the hallway. The kitchen door was slightly ajar. And then I heard Ashley's voice sharp and clear. I'm serious, Mom. I can't stand that woman anymore. I froze. She was talking to her mother, Nicole. She butts into everything. The other day, she tried to tell me how to cook oatmeal for Lily. Like, I don't know how to take care of my own child. I just pretended to listen, but inside I was furious. My hands tightened around the doll. I had never taught her anything, only mentioned once that oatmeal was good for kids' digestion, something Lily's pediatric Ian used to tell me when Christopher was little. Nicole's voice came through the speaker. And what does Christopher say? Ashley answered. He always takes her side. Says his mom is old and we need to be patient, but patience has its limits. She pays for the house and living expenses and thinks that gives her the right to control our lives. My legs trembled. Then I heard Christopher's voice. Ash, hang up. Call your mom later. Okay. Almost done. Mom, I'll call you back. Then Christopher's tired voice. You should be more patient. She's lonely. We're all she's got. Ashley replied. That's exactly why she clings to us. It's not healthy. She needs to go out, make friends, join a senior center or something. Senior club. As if I were some burden that needed to be kept busy so I wouldn't bother them. You know how she is, Christopher murmured. Then why don't you do something? Ashley snapped. I didn't marry you to have your mom hanging around our house all the time, always bringing pies, toys for Lily, asking to come over on Sundays. I can't take it anymore. Silence. A long, heavy silence. I'll talk to her, Christopher finally said. Talk the way you talk. She'll be back here next week. Ashley laughed dryly. I know she pays for things she's not stupid, but that doesn't mean she gets to control us. Honestly, she's the one weighing us down, not the other way around. Without us, what would she even do? Sit alone in that old apartment counting her money? A burden. Those 2 words exploded in my chest. Me, the woman who had worked since she was 15, raised a child alone, sold everything she had to help them, now reduced to a burden. Don't say that, Ash, Christopher said softly, weakly. But he didn't defend me. He only asked her not to say it, not because she was wrong. I'm just being honest, Ashley said, opening the fridge, the door creaking. We need to do something. Either she understands and keeps her distance, or what? Or we'll have to be more direct. Tell her to stay away for a while for her own good, too. I couldn't listen anymore. My vision blurred. I stepped back, clutching the doll to my chest like a shield, and walked out the same way I'd come in, unseen, unwanted, unloved. I got into my car, shut the door, and only then did I collapse. I cried harder than I had since the day I buried Robert. I cried for a kind of pain no medicine could cure. The pain of realizing you no longer mean anything to the people you love more than life itself. The doll lay in my lap with its blue floral dress, braided hair, and the embroidered words, "Lily, with all my love, Grandma Carol." I took that doll back home. It never reached my granddaughter's hands. For the next 3 days, I locked my door and lived in silence, letting a part of me die, the part that still believed I had a place in that family. But you know, when something dies inside you, sometimes something else is born. What rose within me was something I never thought I'd have the courage to feel clarity. 3 days. I stayed in my apartment for 3 whole days, barely eating or sleeping, replaying every word I'd heard. She's our burden, not the other way around. The first day, I only cried. I cried until no tears were left. Until my throat burned, until my eyes were so swollen, I could barely open them. I ignored every call from Susan, every text from the church group. The whole world. By the second day, anger took over. A quiet, burning anger like embers glowing inside. I paced the living room, muttering to myself, recalling every insult, every humiliation. Every time I swallowed my pride and pretended nothing was wrong. I picked up Lily's doll, the one still sitting on the table, the gift I'd carried but couldn't give, and almost threw it in the trash. But I stopped because it wasn't her fault. The fault didn't lie with a 6-year-old child, but with the adults who had forgotten what gratitude meant. By the 3rd day, something changed. I woke before dawn. Even though I hadn't slept, my mind was strangely clear. I walked to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. What I saw startled me. A 68-year-old woman stared back, deep lines around her eyes, tangled grey hair, slumped shoulders. But it wasn't age that scared me. It was the expression, resignation, defeat. And then I saw not just myself, but my mother's reflection. My mother, Margaret, who had raised 5 children alone on a farm after my father left with another woman. She worked until her hands cracked, her back bent from labor. Once before she died, she told me, "Carol, never let anyone make you feel small. You are the backbone of your own life, and a backbone can either break or stand tall. You decide." I looked deep into that mirror and chose to stand tall. I left the bathroom, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the old laptop Christopher had given me 5 years ago, saying I needed to learn how to live in the digital age. I turned it on, my hands trembling, not from weakness now, but from determination. I logged into my online bank account and printed every transfer receipt, every bill, every mortgage payment. I organized them by date, slipping each one into a clear plastic folder as if building a legal case. March 2022. Mortgage, $3,200. Additional support, $2,000 total, $5,200. April, $3,200. Mortgage plus $2,500. Help $5,700 total. May $3,200 plus $3,600 total. I added month by month, year by year. The numbers grew from $5,000 a month to $8,000, sometimes $9,000 when there were emergencies like fixing the air conditioner, car repairs, or Lily's tuition. When I finished, my stomach twisted. $267,000 in 3 years. And that didn't include the $95,000 down payment for their house or the gifts, clothes, dinners, and all the little things that had become routine. I printed the entire record, 42 pages. I slid them into a blue folder and wrote on the cover in black ink. Transfer history, Carol to Christopher and Ashley, 2022 to 2025. Then I opened my drawer and took out a copy of their house deed. Since I paid the down payment, I had the right to keep one. I read it carefully. Owners Christopher Carter and Ashley Carter. My name was nowhere. Not as co-owner, not as guarantor, nothing. On paper, I had no rights to that house. But in my heart, morality was on my side. I called my lawyer, Thomas, a longtime friend who used to come to my shop years ago to fix his suits. We'd stayed in touch and he once told me, "Carol, if you ever need me, call." And this time, I truly needed him. "Hi, Thomas. I need to see you right away. That afternoon, I went to his office. I showed him the documents, the receipts, the deed, told him everything. He listened quietly, glasses low on his nose, flipping through each page carefully. When I finished, he sighed. Carol, legally you have two options. Either treat this as a gift, which means you can't reclaim it, or file a claim arguing these were loans that were never repaid. I don't have a contract or signatures. I know, but you have proof of transfers. And more importantly, do you have any messages or emails showing they considered this borrowed money? I opened my phone and scrolled through messages. Mom, we're tight this month. Can you help? Mom, could you send an extra $1,000? Unexpected bill came up. Mom, thanks for helping. We'll pay you back once things settle. We'll pay you back. That phrase appeared in at least 10 different texts. I showed them to Thomas. He smiled. Then, it's not a gift, it's a loan, and loans must be repaid. We spent the next 2 hours finalizing the documents. Thomas said frankly, you could sue, but it would be long and exhausting. Or you could do something simpler. Stop paying. There's no contract forcing you to continue. The house is in their names, not yours. If you stop, what can they do? Nothing. At worst, they could accuse you of breaking a verbal agreement. But with these texts, you can show they're the ones who broke their promise to repay. You're in a stronger position than you think. I left Thomas's office with the blue folder in hand and a certainty in my heart. I wasn't a burden. I was the supporting foundation. And when a foundation is mistreated, it can be removed. In the days that followed, I organized everything, took photos of every piece of evidence, saved all the messages, preparing as if setting up a chessboard. I knew I was about to make my final move. But before acting, I had to wait because I knew Ashley wouldn't stay quiet. She'd push back and Christopher Week as always would follow. I just didn't expect it to happen so soon. 5 days after meeting with Thomas, my phone buzzed. A notification from the family group. That's when everything began to change. That afternoon, I was sorting my sewing supplies, thread spools by color, buttons by size, needles tested one by one. The task calmed me, hands busy, mind focused. Since meeting Thomas, I'd been sleeping better, not because the pain was gone, but because now I had a plan, an action I'd learned was the best medicine. The phone sat beside a spool of white thread. When it buzzed, I didn't rush to check. Probably an ad or maybe Susan sending another cooking video, but it buzzed again and again. I finally looked. It was from the group Carter family, the one Christopher had created when Lily was born to keep everyone connected, though no one ever really talked there. Just birthday wishes and flower photos. I read the message. We think it's best if you keep some distance for a while. We're going through a difficult time and need some space. Thanks for understanding. I read it once, then twice, then 3 times. The words blurred before my eyes, and I felt something strange in my chest. Not pain, not anger, but disbelief mixed with relief. Relief, because at last they had shown their true faces. Right below Christopher's message was Ashley's blue thumbs up, as if reacting to a weather post, not a message kicking me out of their lives. I looked at the list. Susan, Richard, cousin Janet. No one said anything, just silence. The cowardly kind of silence from people who witness cruelty and pretend not to see. I set the phone down, took a deep breath. My hands no longer trembled. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and drank slowly. Outside the window, the afternoon sky was clear and bright, the kind of day that tricks you into thinking the world is still okay. But it wasn't okay anymore, and it never would be again. I went back to the table, picked up my phone, and began typing. Every word was a deliberate choice. Every comma a brick in the wall I was building between them and me. Understood. Christopher. I'll respect your decision. And I'll also stop paying the house mortgage, $3,200 a month, along with the $5,000 in monthly transfers, and the $890 for Lily's health insurance. I hope you both find the space you need. Love, Mom. I read it 3 times to make sure every sentence was clear, polite, and impossible to argue with. Then I hit send. 2 blue check marks appeared instantly. I switched my phone to silent mode, flipped it face down, and went back to my sewing box, threading a blue string through the needle. My hands were steady, my heart calm. For the first time in 3 years, I was doing something for myself. 15 minutes passed, then 30, then 60. By 7:00 p.m., I made a simple dinner cheese omelette with tomatoes. I sat at the kitchen table, eating in silence, chewing slowly, savoring every bite. I didn't turn on the TV or play music, just silence. And that silence didn't feel heavy or lonely. It felt light, like freedom. Later that night, I took a shower. My phone was still in the living room, screened down under the warm water. I felt like I was washing away 3 years of humiliation and confinement until all that was left was me, a new Carol, who finally understood her worth. After drying off, I took my time applying lavender lotion, the kind I always bought but rarely used, because I wanted to save it. I put on my most comfortable pajamas. It was close to 11 p.m. when I went back to the living room and saw the phone. It was vibrating non-stop, sliding back and forth across the table from all the incoming notifications. The screen lit up, then went dark, then lit again like a frantic heartbeat. I picked it up. 47 missed calls. 23 from Christopher, 15 from Ashley, 9 from unknown numbers. Probably them calling from different phones once they realized I wasn't answering. Then came the messages. God, so many messages. Christopher. Mom, I need to talk to you right now. Mom, please answer. Mom, don't do this. Mom, I didn't mean it that way. Mom, we need to talk. It was just a misunderstanding. Then Ashley, Carol, this must be a misunderstanding. We only asked for some time. We didn't mean for you to stop helping. Can we talk calmly in the morning? Christopher again. Mom, please pick up the phone. Mom, we can't pay the mortgage without your help. Mom, please don't do this to us. I sat on the couch, reading each message slowly, tasting the bitter sweetness of the moment. Sweet because they finally had to face reality. Bitter because all they cared about was the money, not the mother they had rejected. Not the grandmother they'd pushed out of her granddaughter's life. Not the woman who had sacrificed everything for them, but the $8,200 that would no longer land in their account each month. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I went to my room, took out the blue folder. Thomas, my lawyer, had helped me organize filled with every receipt and placed it on the coffee table right where it couldn't be missed. I wrote a small note in blue ink, my handwriting steady. As you asked, I'll stay away. Please respect my decision as I have respected yours. Don't knock. Don't call. When I'm ready to talk, if I ever am, I'll reach out, Carol. I folded the note and slipped it into my purse because I knew they'd come. And I was right. The next morning around 8:30, the doorbell rang non-stop for 20 minutes straight. I was sitting in the kitchen eating buttered toast and sipping coffee, listening to the relentless sound echo through the apartment. And for the first time in years, I smiled. Because if someone demands space, they need to learn how to live in it. The bell rang for the 17th time. Yes, I counted. I sat at my small table, biting into toast with strawberry jam, drinking my coffee slowly, listening to the bell like it was a song. Between the rings, I heard Christopher's voice. Mom, I know you're in there. Please open the door. Then Ashley, trying to sound calm. Carol, we just want to talk. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. Funny words coming from people who'd lost the right to tell me what I had to do. I finished my coffee, washed the cup, dried it, and put it away. The bell kept ringing, followed by louder knocking. Mom, open the door. I took a deep breath, grabbed the note I'd written, went out through the back door, the one leading to the maintenance hallway. I walked down the fire stairs, circled around to the main entrance, and quietly slipped the note through the door gap. On the other side, everything went silent. They'd seen it. I went back the same way, locked the door behind me, turned on the fan because it was hot, and lay down on my bed. I opened the book Susan had lent me, the one I'd never found time to read. The knocking continued for a few more minutes, then stopped. I heard muffled arguing outside, Ashley angry, Christopher responding, then footsteps fading away. Silence. I didn't leave the room the entire morning. I read 40 pages, then dozed off. When I woke, sunlight was spilling through the window for the first time in a long while. I felt light as if a weight had finally been lifted off my shoulders. In the afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Messages. Mom, I read your note, but we need to talk. This is urgent. Mom, the mortgage is due Monday. If we don't pay, there will be penalties. Mom, please don't make things worse. Then Ashley trying to sound conciliatory. Carol, sorry if you felt offended by Christopher's message. We didn't mean it that way. We're just dealing with some problems and spoke poorly. How about lunch to talk things through? I'm sure we can fix this. Fix this as if 3 years of disrespect could be erased over lunch. I didn't respond. On Saturday morning, Susan showed up. She hadn't warned me, just rang the bell and shouted, Carol, it's me. Open up. I recognized her voice instantly. Susan never sugarcoated things. I opened the door and she came in like a gust of wind, hair tied high, carrying a bag of still warm cheese pastries. I came for coffee and I want to hear everything. She went straight to the kitchen. Boil some water. I brought good coffee. We sat at the small table. As we ate, I told her everything from the awful dinner to what I overheard to the group messages and my response. Susan listened quietly, chewing slowly, her eyes fixed on me. When I finished, she dabbed her mouth with a napkin and said, You did the right thing. My throat tightened. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that until I did. Really, Carol? I've watched you disappear over the years, chasing crumbs of affection from the son you raised. I kept quiet because I thought it wasn't my place, but I should have shaken you awake sooner. They're desperate, I whispered. And they'll get more desperate. Susan grabbed another pastry. Now they'll have to grow up for real, pay their own bills, take responsibility. And honestly, that's the best thing you've ever done for them. It doesn't feel like that. It never does at first. She looked at me seriously with that protective older sister gaze. But one day when things settle, maybe, just maybe, they'll realize how strong you are. Susan stayed all morning. We watched a bad movie on TV, laughed at the ridiculous parts, ate candy straight from the pot, and for the first time in months, I felt light-hearted. When she left, she hugged me tightly and whispered, Don't go back, Carol. Promise me. I promise. But the truth was, I wasn't sure I could keep that promise. My mind was steady, but my heart was bleeding. On Sunday, they tried again, this time with Lily. I heard her little voice through the intercom. Grandma, it's me. Dad says, You're sad. I drew you a picture. My heart shattered. I pressed the talk button. Hi, sweetheart. Grandma's not feeling well today, but I'm so happy you made a drawing. Tell your dad to bring it another day. Okay. Are you sick? I closed my eyes. No, honey. Just tired. I'll feel better soon. I love you. I love you, too. I released the button, sank to the floor, and cried. Some right decisions still hurt, like mistakes, and staying away from my granddaughter, even when it wasn't my fault, was one of them. But I couldn't weaken. Not now after coming this far. Monday, the mortgage was due. And that night, I received Christopher's longest message yet. Mom, the payment's late. I tried to get a bank loan, but they declined. Ashley's panicking. Lily keeps asking about you, and I don't know what to say. Mom, I know I was wrong. I hurt you, but please don't let us lose the house. Don't do this out of pride. I'm begging you. Pride, I typed slowly. It's not pride, Christopher. It's dignity. You asked for space, I gave it. You called me a burden. I heard it. Now you need to understand. Respect can't be begged for, only earned. And once lost, it's not always something you get back. I sent the message and turned off my phone. That night, I cried again. But these tears were different. They weren't of despair. They were a funeral. A farewell to the mother I used to be. The one who had to die so that the woman I needed to become could live. That woman no longer survived on leftovers of affection. A week passed, 7 days of silence, my phone mostly off, sleepless nights, wondering if I'd done the right thing. By Wednesday, I was folding laundry in the living room when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. It was Susan, but her face was different. Tense. Worried. I opened the door. "We need to talk," she said, stepping inside without waiting for me to invite her. "And you're not going to like what I have to say." My heart sank. "Is something wrong with Lily?" "No, she's fine," Susan said, rubbing her tired face. "Sit down, Carol." We sat on the couch. She was quiet for a moment, wringing her hands, clearly searching for words. "Do you remember when Christopher sent that message in the group chat?" "Yes." I stayed quiet then because I was shocked, but afterward I got angry. "So on Friday, I called Ashley." Susan looked straight into my eyes. "I wanted to know what made them treat you that way." My heartbeat quickened and she told me everything. I think she saw me as an ally. I've always been polite, never interfered. She assumed I'd take her side. "And what did she say?" I asked, my voice trembling. Susan took a deep breath before answering. She said, "That whole sensitive time excuse was a lie. There was nothing going on, just a plan." My blood ran cold. "A plan?" I asked. Susan's voice shook with anger. "Ashley wanted you out so she could remodel the house specifically. Turn the guest room, the one you always sleep in, into a luxury dressing room." I froze. "A dressing room," Susan continued, her tone dripping with disgust. She even showed me a design from Pinterest: floor to ceiling mirrors, glossy wood shelves, LED lights, all that nonsense about $35,000 in cost. She said, and I quote, "You can't renovate with your mother-in-law always around. She'll meddle, complain, drive us crazy. Better to cut her off for a while." My throat closed up. Cut off. They spoke about me like I was a weed to be uprooted. Susan gripped my hand, fury in her eyes. But this next part is what really made me want to slap her. I looked up. "What?" She said, "You're too clingy, that you can't leave them alone, always wanting to visit every weekend, always inserting yourself into their lives." And then she added, "But we still need her money. So, we'll find a way to keep the cash flowing without having her around." Those words hit my chest like bricks. Keep the money, but not me. As if I were a faucet they could turn on or off just without the sound of dripping water. I whispered, "She really said that?" Susan nodded. "Every word." "That's not all," she added, pulling her phone from her purse. I started getting suspicious because they kept saying they were broke, but she kept posting pictures of fancy restaurants, new clothes, salon visits. Susan handed me her phone. It was Ashley's Instagram page. A photo of a sushi dinner spread captioned, "Friday night celebration." Scroll down. A picture of Ashley smiling, holding a designer handbag, treating myself. Another one of her and Christopher at a bar. Colorful cocktails in hand. Date nights are sacred. All of that within the last 2 months, Susan said while they claimed they were struggling. I did some quick math. That restaurant at least $400 for 2 people. The purse. I recognized the brand. No less than $2,500. Each outing must have cost $600 to $800. All of it. My money, I whispered. They've been spending my money. Exactly, Susan said. And here's more. She showed me another photo of Ashley at a furniture store holding fabric samples. The caption read, "Choosing details for a dream coming true." I swallowed hard. The dressing room. Exactly. Susan said she'd planned it long before pushing you out. How do you know all this? I asked. Because I listened to what she didn't say. Susan replied, putting away her phone. I asked if they needed financial help, if they were in trouble. She laughed and said, "Not really, just some adjustments." Adjustments? I repeated. The same woman Christopher said couldn't afford the mortgage claimed she just needed to adjust. My blood boiled. Everything was calculated. Not anger, not misunderstanding, cold, deliberate manipulation. Susan hesitated, then added, "There's more and it's going to hurt." Tell me. Christopher knew all along. My heart clenched. What? Ashley slipped and said she'd discussed it with him, and he agreed. They needed space. They planned the whole thing together. My son, the boy I raised alone, fed, educated, and gave a future to, sacrificing my youth, had been complicit. He knew it was all a lie to get rid of me just so they could remodel a room. Yet, he still sent that message. I stood up abruptly, walked to the window, needing air, needing space to breathe. Carol. Susan's voice softened behind me. I know this hurts, but you needed to know the truth. I turned to her and looked straight into her eyes. Thank you. Thank you for being honest. What are you going to do now? She asked. Nothing, I replied. I'll keep doing exactly what I've been doing. You're not going to confront them. For what? To hear more lies. I shook my head. No. They dug their own hole. Now they'll have to figure out how to climb out of it. Susan nodded slowly. What if they lose the house? Then so be it, I said firmly. They'll learn that when you bite the hand that feeds you, sooner or later, you go hungry. Susan stayed for a while longer, but I barely heard her. My mind spun with images of that $35,000 dressing room, the fancy dinners, the designer bags, all paid for with my labor, while they looked at me as if I were a burden. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark living room, eyes fixed on the ceiling, letting anger and pain transform into something else resolve. Because at that point, it wasn't about money or a house anymore. It was about something bigger. Love without respect is just exploitation. And I was done being drained. They wanted space. Then they would have all the space in the world along with the consequences that came with it. 2 months passed. 60 days of absolute silence. 60 days of watching their world crumble while I simply observed. It wasn't easy. Some nights I picked up my phone, my hands trembling, almost typing, "All right, let's talk." Some mornings I woke up with a heavy chest, thinking about Lily, wondering if she missed me, if she understood. But every time I wavered, I remembered. I remembered the word burden. I remembered the blue thumbs up. I remembered that overpriced dressing room they valued more than my presence, and I stayed strong. Susan kept me updated not because I asked, but because she believed I had the right to know how they were facing the fallout. In the first week, Christopher negotiated with the bank for an extension. They got 5 extra days. Then they borrowed $3,200 from Ashley's mother, Nicole, just enough to cover the mortgage payment, nothing else. In the second week, their cable was cut off. Then Ashley's gym membership. Then their fancy dinners. By the third week, the bank denied Christopher's loan request because his credit score was too low. Ashley tried splitting up her credit cards and found they were maxed out. They started fighting. Susan heard from one of Ashley's relatives that their marriage was falling apart. Good. They were finally tasting the bitterness I'd endured for 3 years while keeping their luxury lifestyle afloat. By the 4th week, they couldn't make another payment. The bank sent a warning, one more missed installment, and they'd face foreclosure. And then Christopher showed up. It was Saturday afternoon. I was reading on the balcony when the doorbell rang. 3 short, hesitant chimes. I looked through the peephole. It was him alone without Ashley. I froze. My son, once so polished, shirts always ironed, hair perfectly combed, now looked exhausted. Dark circles, unshaven face, wrinkled clothes. He looked 10 years older than he had 2 months ago. Something deep inside me stirred the instinct of a mother. The urge to protect, to embrace, but I didn't open the door. I stood still, watching through the frosted glass. He pressed the bell again, then rested his forehead against the door. "Mom, I know you're in there. Please, just listen to me. I messed everything up. I know I did. I have no excuse. Ashley and we're not okay. She blames me. I blame her. And in the middle of it all is Lily asking, why doesn't Grandma come anymore?" At the sound of my granddaughter's name, my heart clenched. We missed another mortgage payment. The bank's going to take the house. "Mom, I've lost everything. I don't know what to do anymore." He went silent for a moment. "I know I don't have the right to ask for anything. I treated you terribly, but you're all I have, Mom. I was too stupid to see it sooner." Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't open the door because I knew there was a line between forgiveness and allowing myself to be used, and I wasn't sure where I stood on that line. "All right," he said softly after a long silence. "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry." I listened as his footsteps faded, the elevator door closed, and only then did I collapse to the floor, sobbing. As much as it hurt to see my son broken, as much as my mother's heart bled, there was still a quiet voice inside whispering, "He needs to learn. He has to understand the cost of what he's done." A week later, Susan called. "They're getting divorced." I gripped the phone tightly. "What?" "Ashley's the one filing. She says she can't take the pressure anymore. Blames Christopher for ruining things with his mother, the woman who paid for everything. She said she didn't marry him to live in misery." My stomach twisted. "And Lily?" "Half the time with Christopher, half with Ashley. As for the house, they're being forced to sell. The bank gave them an ultimatum. Either pay everything they owe plus about $15,000 in penalties, or it goes to auction." $15,000. Nothing compared to the $267,000 I had poured into that place. And Christopher? He's completely shattered. According to Ashley's relatives, he's still in the house, barely getting out of bed, took a leave from work due to depression. I hung up and stared at the wall. My son was falling apart. A part of me wanted to run to him, to hold him, to say I'd fix everything. But another part, the one that had learned self-respect, whispered, "You can't save someone who doesn't want to save themselves. You can't love for them." I lived in that tug-of-war for days until one Thursday night, my phone lit up with a new message. It was from Christopher, but it wasn't his voice. I opened it and heard Lily's sweet, gentle voice. "Grandma, Daddy said I could send you a message. Daddy's really sad. He cries every day. I'm sad, too, because you don't come over anymore. Don't you love me anymore?" The world stopped. Don't you love me anymore? A 6-year-old child, thinking she'd done something wrong, that her grandma stopped loving her. That night, after 2 months of silence, I called Christopher. He picked up immediately. "Mom," his voice cracked, full of hope. "Let's talk," I said. "At my house, not yours. Tomorrow afternoon 3 o'clock. Come alone." "I'll be there. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for..." I hung up before he could finish. I'd listen, but this time it would be on my terms. In my home, under my rules. If he wanted a second chance, he'd have to earn it. Because a mother's love may be endless, but self-respect is not negotiable. I had learned in the hardest way possible that once respect is gone, even the deepest love becomes a chain. And I had chosen freedom. Now it was time to see if he would choose responsibility. Friday afternoon, right at 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I was sitting in my sewing chair, hands folded on my lap, back straight. I had rehearsed this conversation dozens of times in my head the night before. I knew what I would say, how I would say it, and most importantly, what I would no longer accept. I opened the door. Christopher stood there holding a paper bag. I recognized the smell, pumpkin bread, the kind I used to bake for him. "Hi, Mom," he said softly, his voice shaking. "Come in." He stepped inside slowly, as if walking into sacred ground. He looked around the room where he'd grown up, at the photos on the wall, the couch where we used to watch movies together. "Sit down." I pointed to the chair across from me. He set the bag on the table. "I tried making it like you do, but it's probably not as good." "Christopher," I interrupted calmly, "the pumpkin bread isn't why you're here." He swallowed hard. "I know." "Then say what you came to say." He took a deep breath, hands trembling. "These past 2 months have been hell, Mom. Not because of losing the house or the money, but because I realized what I did to you. When everything fell apart, Ashley showed her true self. She blamed me. Said I was weak. Said I should have kept you close like you were an investment I'd mismanaged." I stayed silent, letting him speak. That's when I understood she never respected you. And worse, I let it happen. I saw her belittle you, mock you, push you away, and I did nothing. Why? My voice was cold. Why is it easier to be complicit than to defend? He bowed his head. Because I was a coward, Mom. You raised a strong man, but I chose to be weak. The air between us grew heavy. When I sent that message, I thought I was being mature, independent, but really I was selfish and cruel. He looked up, eyes red. Because pushing you away was easier than standing up to Ashley. And what about the dressing room? I asked. $35,000 for that luxury nonsense while claiming you couldn't afford to live. His face went pale. You know about that. I know everything, Christopher. The design plans, the fancy restaurants, the designer handbags. I know you spent every cent I sent while lying about struggling. He covered his face and sobbed. Not the restrained cry of a grown man, but the raw, broken sound of a child. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. A part of me wanted to rise and hold him. But the other part, the one that had learned self-respect, kept me still. Sorry isn't enough, Christopher. Sorry doesn't bring back $267,000. Sorry doesn't erase the word burden. Sorry doesn't wash away the humiliation. He looked up, face wet with tears. I know I can't fix everything, but I have to try. I've learned my lesson. What lesson? That family isn't about money. That love isn't about convenience. He nodded, sobbing. You were the only one who was always there my whole life, and I threw that away. For a woman who left me at the first sign of trouble, for a house I'm about to lose, for a life that was never real. I sighed. What do you want now? Forgiveness, he said softly. That's all. I'm not asking for money or for you to save the house. I just want a chance to earn back your trust, even if it takes years. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, people went about their lives, each carrying their own pain. Do you know what the worst part of all this is, Christopher? What is it? It's not the money, and it's not the ingratitude. It's that I lost myself. I stopped being Carol, the woman who raised her child alone, worked until her hands bled, and kept her dignity. I became Christopher's mom, someone who existed only to give, to serve, and to disappear when no longer needed. But when you pushed me away, I found myself again. Tears still ran down his face. I continued. I started painting again, going out with friends, eating alone at restaurants for the first time in my life, and I found it pleasant. I bought new dresses, read 4 books, took a trip to the beach with Susan. I lived, Christopher. For the first time in years, I truly lived without worrying who needed me, without saving a few hundred to send you. Mom, I'm sorry. I forgive you, I said, and I saw relief soften his face. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean everything goes back to the way it was. I understand. I'm not sure you do. I turned back to the table and sat down. I have a proposal. Non-negotiable. Over the past 3 years, I've spent $267,000 plus $95,000 for the down payment on the house. That's a total of $362,000. I want a contract acknowledging that debt. Mom, I can't pay that much. Let me finish. My tone stayed calm. You'll repay 60% over 5 years, about $217,000, which means roughly $3,620 a month. If you manage that, the debt is settled. If not, the house will be sold and I'll take my share. The remaining 40% I'll forgive as a gift if you keep your word. He went quiet, thinking. I continued. I want to see Lily again, but on my terms whenever she wants to visit me, not when someone decides it's appropriate. I won't accept love that's conditional anymore. She really loves you. She asks about you every day. Then let me love her without interference, without control. All right. And finally, I said, I won't support you financially anymore. You're 35, Christopher. It's time to stand on your own. If it's a real emergency, health or safety, I'll help. But restaurant meals, handbags, home repairs, you handle those yourself. He nodded, swallowing hard. I accept everything. Good. Meet with Thomas on Monday. He's prepared the contract. You'll sign it, and then we move forward. He stood exhausted, but somehow lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. "Mom, can I hug you?" I hesitated, the wound still fresh, but then I opened my arms. He hugged me tightly, the kind of hug a lost child gives when they finally find their way back, clinging to a lifeline. "I'll do it right this time. I promise." "I hope so," I said quietly. "Because this is your last chance." 6 months have passed since that day. Christopher signed the contract. He couldn't keep the house, so he sold it. From the sale, he paid me part of what he owed, $140,000. The rest he's paying gradually, $2,500 a month. Sometimes late, but still paying. He moved into a smaller, simpler apartment. Lily lives with him during the week, and she actually seems happier. Less tension, fewer fights. Ashley disappeared. She remarried, this time to a wealthy man. Christopher and I have lunch together once a month. He calls every week, not asking for money, just checking in, sometimes asking for advice, and I give it when I feel it's right. And Lily, she sleeps over at my place every Saturday night. We bake cookies, watch movies, sew dolls. On those nights, I feel as if I've recovered the most precious thing I ever lost, real connection. Last week, she asked me, "Grandma, why don't you come over anymore?" I sat down, held her small hand, and told her the truth gently in a way a 6-year-old could understand. Because sometimes, sweetheart, we have to stay away from people who don't treat us well. Not out of anger, but out of love for ourselves. What about now? Now everything's okay because your dad has learned that love means respect. And I've learned that I can still be happy on my own. Today, as I write this, I'm sitting on my apartment balcony. There's a new painting on the wall, one I painted in art class. It's not perfect, but it's mine, and that's enough. After nearly 69 years of life, I've learned one thing. Unconditional love doesn't mean accepting unconditional disrespect. You can love someone deeply, and still say no. Still set boundaries, still choose peace for yourself. I've forgiven my son, but I'll never again become the mother who forgot herself and lived on scraps of pity. Because I've learned love without respect is a prison and I've chosen freedom. And what about you? Have you ever had to set a boundary even when it broke your heart? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might give someone else the courage to love the right way. And if you'd like to keep hearing stories about love, family, and the lessons life teaches us, stay with me. Let's keep walking this journey together, learning how to love without losing ourselves.